Okay, everybody, this is E. Marcel 2. Welcome to another edition of the Gridiron Blitz. We're going to recap week 6 of the NFL season and other news and notes in the world of professional football. As always, to follow everything that we do, go to the mothership, to sportsinquirer.net. By the way, we're recording this show on October 18th, 2021. And as I mentioned, go to the sportsinquirer.net, get all of your news and notes in the world of sports and beyond. You can also go to our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under Sports Inquirer. Do a search there, and you'll be able to keep track of all that we have going on. And then finally, subscribe to us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes under Sports Inquirer. You do a search on there, and everything that we post goes to those platforms, whether it's our audio podcast, our video interviews, and everything else in between. All right, as I mentioned, we're going to review week 6 of the NFL season so far. Still have one more contest to take place between Tennessee and Buffalo. But through this week so far, there have been 22 games this season worth a game-winning score and a final minute of regulation or an overtime this season, which is the most all-time in history through the first 6 weeks of a regular season. Both Dallas and Minnesota and Pittsburgh earned overtime victories in week 6. At least one game has gone to overtime in each of the first 6 weeks of the NFL season, and that marks the second time ever that has happened. The only other time that we had at least one overtime game through the first 6 weeks of a season was back in 2018. And finally, with two games remaining, or one game remaining, in week 6, 11 games have gone to overtime this season. Only the 1995 season had more. Actually, I need to correct that note. I did an error there. Actually, there have been 12 games that have gone to overtime this season, and that ties the 1995 mark for the most through the first 6 weeks. Parity is apparent around us. Now, there's some really good teams and some really not so good teams, and we'll go over those as we roll through the recap. But just the parity of the NFL is more apparent now than ever. I know there's one undefeated team in the NFL in Arizona. They're not going to go undefeated. They're going to lose a game or two. But are they world beaters? No. Detroit is winless this year. Are they? I know they had a really bad game this week against Cincinnati, but we've seen them play very competitively against Detroit. Detroit against the Green Bay. We saw them play who's going to be a playoff team against Baltimore. Required a record-setting field goal by Tucker to defeat the Lions, and the Ravens are, some would say, the best team in the NFL right now, at least in the AFC. So they're not an awful team. So there's a lot of parity going on in the NFL, and that's just apparent as what we've seen through the first 6 weeks of the season. Pittsburgh defeated Seattle 23-20 in overtime. Yeah, I thought it was a fugazi situation there, how Seattle was able to spike the ball very late in that contest and set up the game-tying field goal. So I was glad in a way that Pittsburgh was able to win the game in overtime. Really set up by the strip sack of Geno Smith by T.J. Watt. Pittsburgh was able to recover the ball, drive down the field, and set up the game-winning field goal. I also was peeved seeing Russell Wilson at midfield for the coin toss to start the overtime period. I did not like that at all. He's injured. He's not active. He should be on the sidelines. I don't know how that was allowed. That was very bizarre to see. But Pittsburgh really needed that win if to keep their playoff hopes alive. And you can start looking at the playoff picture right now. We'll do that more on our next show when we preview the upcoming week. But it's 6 weeks through a season. Some of these teams have played 6 games. We're at the not necessarily at the halfway point, but if you want to get in the playoffs, you're going to start winning some of these games. And Pittsburgh getting that victory was very important for them. Tampa defeated Philadelphia 28-22 in the Thursday night contest. But when it's a short week, you're going on the road. Look, Philadelphia is not a very good team. We all know that. But for Tampa, you get the victory and go home. We've gone over the stats over the years or over the season. Brady throwing 3-4 touchdowns in a contest and setting all these big marks. Just win the game and go home. And Tampa was able to do that, and that was very important for them. And in a game that I really didn't have much interest in watching, but it just happened to be on very early on Sunday morning. Was Jacksonville defeating Miami 23-20. These two teams, they're not going to be in the playoffs. Jacksonville got his first win of the season. They really needed that. I thought that with that game-winning kick by Matthew Wright, a 53-yarder at the end of the contest, that probably saved Urban Meyer's job. Just everything going on with him. We all know the off-the-field stuff. We saw the pictures of him at his restaurant engaging in activities with that woman. But even on the field, if you go winless, that's just through your first 5 weeks. That's not a good scenario. And they did not look very good at all throughout that 5-game losing streak. But they were able to get the win, and that was a big moment for them. Trevor Lawrence, 319 yards passing, and Tua actually had 329 yards passing. First time in NFL history, second time in NFL history, where two guys under the age of 24 each passed for 300 yards in the very same game. Interestingly enough, the last time was last year with Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray. So that was a interesting statistic there. But it's Jacksonville overcoming a 10-point deficit to win that game. And credit to Lawrence for making that late pass to the receiver to get the ball in the middle of the field and make it close enough for Wright's 53-yard field goal. But that was a little fugazi stuff as well. He was able to, and with I think 3 seconds left, able to snap a ball, complete a pass, and call a timeout. If I was, and you saw Brian Flores, the head coach of the Dolphins, was very livid and frustrated after that contest because they're allowed to execute all of that stuff with about 2 seconds coming off of the clock. I thought that was a little shady too. But you gotta give credit to Matthew Wright, who made that field goal, so the 53-yarder, to earn the victory. And that's just a very big win for Jacksonville. As I said, they're not going to go to the playoffs. They're not going to be in the Super Bowl. But just for the sake or for the building of that program, that was very important for them to earn that victory. Kind of similar deal with Green Bay and Chicago for the Packers, as I mentioned with Tampa. You go on the road. It wasn't a short week, but you go on the road, you earn the victory, and you go home. The Packers are able to get a 24-14 triumph over the Chicago Bears. Aaron Rodgers had three total touchdowns in the victory, 2 passing and 1 rushing. Green Bay extended their winning streak to 5 games. That's just one of those contests that you get the victory and you go back to your home. And Packers are really taking control of that division. And I think that with Chicago having its ups and downs with Justin Fields, which was expected, Minnesota, they're kind of up and down as well. They've won more than lost so far this year. And Detroit, as we mentioned them, they're not a very good team. Very important win for the Bears to get that on the road. For the Packers, I said, to get that win on the road and keep it moving. We keep mentioning the Lions, probably their worst game of the season. They've had so many tough losses to begin the campaign, and it just culminated yesterday by losing to Cincinnati 34-11. Joe Burrow, 3 touchdown passes, on 270 yards passing in the victory. He's had 2 touchdown passes each of the first 6 games of the season for the Bengals. He joined Dan Marino as the only first or second year quarterback with at least 2 TD passes each of the team's first 6 games of a season in NFL history. Now, Dan Marino led the Dolphins to the Super Bowl that year. I don't know if the Bengals are going to be in the Super Bowl, but they can have a winning record, and they are firmly entrenched in the playoff situation in the AFC. So a very good win for the Bengals, who also received major contributions from rookie wide receiver Jamar Chase, who had 97 receiving yards, which led the team. So through the first 6 games of the season, Chase has 553 receiving yards, and that is second only to Antoine Bolden for the most by a rookie through his first 6 games. So he has been a major contributor for the Bengals as they roll along. Indianapolis was able to defeat Houston 31-3. Big game for Carson Wentz, just getting a victory, finishing it healthy. And Tennessee plays tonight as we're recording this, but they can find themselves right in the AFC South division race. So that was a good win for for Indianapolis. Houston, they just a lost season for that squad. Not very good at all. The Rams are speaking of lost seasons potentially. The Rams defeated the Giants 38-11. I know this is going to be a reference that only maybe one of you gets, and if you get that, respect to you. But seeing the Rams playing the Giants at was MetLife, used to be Middle Meadowlands back in the day, brought me back to 1989 in a playoff game with the Rams and the Giants, and Flipper Anderson catching that darn touchdown pass late in the contest as the game winner, and I think it was an overtime for the Rams to win that contest and advance in the playoffs over my beloved New York Giants. So seeing that blue and gold on the field at Giant Stadium, well, it's MetLife, as I said, but we'll call it Giant Stadium, darn it, for this old school reference. That hurt my heart seeing that, and I still have love for the Giants, even though my fandom is more professional over the years. That was my first sports love as far as football goes. So I still have a little bit of sentimentality towards the Giants. But back to the contest that took place yesterday. Big game for the Rams. Cooper Kupp, 9 receptions, 130 receiving yards, 2 TDs in the victory. So he also had 2 receiving TDs in week 2 and week 3 of the season. So he's joined Julius Thomas as the only guys to have at least 2 touchdown catches in 3 of his team's first 6 games of a season. So he has put himself in some very good category. And I said he has 46 receptions for 653 yards and 7 touchdowns so far this year. Only other guy to put up those type of numbers, 65 catches, 650 receiving yards, and 7 TDs through the team's first 6 games, Marvin Harrison, the Hall of Famer, did that for the Colts back in 1999. So the Rams are putting themselves, and they have to keep pace with the Cardinals. The Cardinals are undefeated so far this year. And the Rams, if they won't have any chance to win the division, have to keep up with the Arizona squad if they want to put themselves in that position. Kansas City defeated Washington 31-13. Really odd game. I watched the first half of this contest. Mahomes very sloppy with the ball in 2 ways. Well, it's not just on Mahomes, but the Chiefs just turned the ball over. It's way too much. We saw the pass to Tyreek Hill that was right to him, right off of his hands, intercepted by the Washington defensive player. And then we also saw Mahomes, while he was being thrown down on the ground during a sack, just heaved the ball up into the air. They were in field goal range, and it was intercepted by the Washington defender. Those turnovers, it didn't cost them because Washington's not a very good team. That can hurt them in the long run. We've seen these turnovers hurt them at various points throughout the season. But still, Mahomes, 397 passing yards, 2 TDs, 29th career game with at least 300 passing yards, tied Kurt Warner for the most for a player through his first 5 seasons in NFL history. Well, he's going to break that mark at some point later on this year. Travis Kelce, 8 receptions for 99 yards. He has 78 career games with at least 5 receptions, tied Shannon Sharp for the 4th most by an NFL tight end in history. Sharp's in the Hall of Fame. The only other guys to have more of those type of games, at least 5 receptions, all of them are current or future Hall of Famers. Tony Gonzalez, Jason Witten, Antonio Gates. Kelce will be in that level as well. But just a good performance for them, but still those turnovers they have to tighten that up if they want to find a way to win. Cowboys defeated the Patriots 35-29 in overtime. Dak Prescott, big day, 445 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Just a back and forth affair between New England and Dallas. 75th career start of this career for Dak Prescott. And as I mentioned, all of those numbers. Had a passer rating of 108.7. 39 times he's done that in his career. 3rd most by a player in his first 75 starts. Only other guys to do that be more than 39 times, Aaron Rodgers and Tony Romo. Just a really back and forth affair. Trayvon Diggs had a 42-yard interception return for a touchdown, joined Rob Woodson as the only players with 7 interceptions through the first 6 games of a season. Only those two, Woodson and Diggs, only other guys to do that since 1970. So if it happened before 1970, back in the olden days, I don't know that time, but it just a big deal for Dallas to get that win. We've seen Dallas lose those games in the past, and part of it is due to just turnovers. Part of it's the clock management. Very odd scenarios. You had Mike McCarthy calling timeouts at bizarre times, setting up 50-plus yard field goals on fourth and twos when you could have kept the ball and maybe get a first down or run some more clock down. Just a very bizarre game, but very interesting. But they still able to emerge with a victory, and that's the most important thing for Dallas as they progress through the season. Uh, I mentioned the Vikings earlier, able to defeat Carolina 34-28. Kirk Cousins 373 passing yards and 3 TDs, no interceptions in that victory. So 20th career game with at least 300 passing yards and 3 TDs and a passer rating of 110 or higher. He actually surpassed Aaron Rodgers for the most games with those statistics through the first 10 seasons of his career. So big moment for them as they playoff hopes. If they have any of them, they had to win that contest, and they were able to do that. Baltimore defeated the Chargers 34-6. Lamar Jackson 218 total yards in the contest, 1 TD, several interceptions. You don't like to see the turnovers, but he turned 25 in January, and he earned his 35th career win. So he surpassed Dan Marino for the most by a player before his 25th birthday. He turns 25 in January. I read that wrong. So most career victories for a guy under the age of 25. So Jackson, he does it differently, and I must admit, I wasn't on some Bill Polian kick that he should retire and never play quarterback, but his approach is very different, and I've gotten used to it. That's just the way he is, and he throws the ball very well. And that's the thing; he's always had the legs to run, but he's passed the ball very accurately this year, and that's been a big performance for him. Arizona defeated Cleveland 37-14. Cardinals 6-0 for the first time since 1974. Big performances from Kyler Murray. They 4 touchdowns total in the contest. Cleveland disappointing. You figure without Arizona, without their head coach and Cliff Kingsbury, their main signal caller as far as plays, Arizona would be at a disadvantage. Outside of that, Baker Mayfield Hail Mary touchdown pass to end the first half. Not much going on there. Mayfield 234 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, turnovers. Just not a good scenario for Cleveland. And Arizona, you got to take them seriously as a major contender because as they keep winning and keep things rolling. Las Vegas defeated Denver 34-24. If you want to hear my thoughts on John Gruden, listen to my previous show. Uh, he had to go and everything like that. We all know the scenario. Big one for Las Vegas, though, dealing with, I won't say adversity because it was kind of self-induced and with everything going on. But when you get rid of your coach in the middle of a season under controversy, which it was, and you come out and get a victory, very good effort by the Raiders to emerge with a victory over a Denver team that started off 3-0 on the season, but has not had good times over the past few weeks. All right, that concludes this edition of the Gridiron Blitz, recapping Week 6 of the NFL season. As always, go to the sportsinquirer.net, premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. You can also go to our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the Sports Inquirer. And then finally, subscribe to us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes. Do a search for us on there under the Sports Inquirer, and you'll be able to keep track of everything that we have going on. And until next time, good fight, good night, and be safe.